Well, thank you everyone for coming. Can you all hear me? Okay. I should probably start by saying I'm not a professional speaker. I don't normally talk at these types of conferences. I'm also not an academic, which will become very evident to you very shortly. If we can get my presentation up. I'm not going to talk to you about the theory of leadership because I'm not an academic. I haven't written about the subject. What I am going to talk about is my own personal journey. And I started in advertising 28 years ago. And these, unfortunately, are some of the pictures that represent my illustrious career. So we're going to start off really by telling a very personal story. And the one thing that I've learned from presentations is apparently you have to do things in threes, right, to be memorable. And also you need some alliteration. So I've decided to go for both things here to make it a memorable presentation. So I am going to reflect on how I've got to where I am. I want to give you some context. I'm then going to ruminate around some of the things, some of the challenges that I faced and some of the things that I put into place to get the agency to where it is. And then I'm going to share with you some of the results for PhD. So if we start with Ruben's Reflects. This is quite important because I do think that we are the product of the context that we grow up in and events that happen to us, and it's those two things. It's the nurture and nature side of things. So I'm going to start with my background. This isn't me, this is my father. My father grew up in wartime, in a very underprivileged background. He was self-made. He started working in advertising when he was 15 years old, so had no education. And he worked his way from postboy in one agency for 40 years up to chairman. So he really is a very inspirational figure, but he's also quite a difficult man. And he's difficult because he grew up in a time where businesses were dominated by very, very strong personalities. And he ran his company, as many companies were run in those days, which is with an iron fist. And what he said went, and he carried that into the home as well. He was quite a difficult father. Amazing drive, amazing commitment to the business. But that was what I had to live up to. On the other hand, my second inspiration is the much more glamorous mother. So this is actually taken from her engagement party to my father. I should probably start by saying they are both still with us, right? So when I talk about them in the past, it's just that they don't look like this anymore. So my mother didn't work. She was mother of 3 boys and was kind, loving, generous, patient, all the things that my father wasn't. And it's really the two sides of that personality which have driven me, because what I decided from quite an early age is I wanted to be as successful as my father, but I didn't want to do it the way that he had done it. I wanted to bring all the traits and values of my mother into business, which is not the easiest thing to do. But that was kind of my mission. So I started my career in advertising in 1987. I started at a company called Young & Rubicam. I don't know whether any of you have got any idea what the advertising sector is all about. Couple of nods, not many. So I'm going to give you a very, very short potted history because I joined in 1987 at a time when the business was going through enormous change. And I do think, if you're wondering what on earth I'm doing here speaking to you, is hopefully some of the things that I talk about will resonate, because our business has gone through dramatic change and is currently going through dramatic change. 1987 was the time when advertising really split into 2 parts. You have the people that make the ads and the people that place the ads. So you have very creative, well-educated people, and then basically you have traders. I went into the trading bit. So I worked in the media department of Young & Rubicam in 1987, only to find that actually media was starting to split away as a separate discipline, and new media companies were starting to emerge, like Cara, Mediacom and MediaVest, which were the next 3 places that I worked. And between 1987 and 1999, I did very well. I was a media planner buy, which meant that I placed vast sums of my clients' money in what we thought were the best environments, whether that was television, cinema, radio, press, and increasingly into digital channels. And I went from company to company. I was very promiscuous, unlike my father, with his 40 years in one company, until I discovered this company. PhD was formed by three individuals, Patterson, Horswell and Durden. So it was a happy coincidence that they created a name that sounded clever, because actually they came to market really with a difference. Where all of these companies were trying to beat media vendors over the head and try and get a better price, PhD decided they wanted to find a better way, which is to better understand consumers, to be smarter about where they place their advertising spend. So it was almost an antidote to everything that was happening at the time. And I remember when they launched in 1990 thinking, I want to work there. Well, it took me until the year 2000, so they'd been going for 10 years until they actually took me in. And I started working at PhD at a really interesting time because they'd been so successful that they sold out. So whilst the three founders were still within the organisation, they were starting to exit, and they sold out to a large American organisation called Omnicom, which some of you may have heard of. It's a vast organisation with about 90,000 employees. So the business was going through dramatic change because actually it handed over to the management reins to the next generation of leaders within the organisation. And something was happening around the business. These two individuals came along, almost out of nowhere, because our business was changing around us without us even recognising it was happening. Two things were happening. One was that media was starting to centralise, and what I mean by that is Omnicom decided that it had lots of different advertising agencies, and actually if you pooled all of those efforts together, you could create more efficiencies and more volume. It meant that they could buy more efficiently for their clients. It meant that some of our services, like finance, like IT, like HR, like new business, many of the component parts that we'd been used to running suddenly was being handed over to a centralised function. And I'm hoping that this type of thing resonates with you because it's definitely the way that the world is going. So in order to create efficiencies, this lady, Philippa Brown, came in to run Omnicom Media Group. And that was to pull the efforts of PhD and OMD and all the various media agency brands together under one roof. That didn't mean there wasn't a separate PhD agency, but it meant that some of the disciplines within our organisation was starting to be centralised. The second thing that happened is this gentleman came along, Mike Cooper, who is and still is the global CEO of PhD, because actually our business has gone global. You know, whether we like it or not, the clients that we deal with, whether it's the Unilevers or the Cadburys, they are being consumed by global organisations, which means that if we don't have a global footprint across many different countries, we can't compete. So PhD, when I joined it, had 3 offices, one in the UK, one in the US and one in Canada. It currently has over 85. And this was a huge change for our business. On a practical level, it meant that my email address went from a .co.uk to a .com. And that was quite a significant thing because suddenly you felt like we're not really in control of our own destiny. Suddenly someone's coming in and almost doing a reverse takeover of the business that we loved, that was actually a little bit niche and a little bit boutique. Suddenly these individuals came in and decided there was a different way of doing things. Now, not surprisingly, there was quite a lot of pushback from the management team at PhD UK. PhD UK was where it all started for PhD. Unlike a lot of our competitors, it's a UK-founded business. And these two individuals came in and didn't really like what they saw because they had a management team that was starting to go like that and not wanting to share, not wanting to open up to global, to the centralised services, wanting to protect their own destiny, effectively, and their own remit. And these two individuals didn't like it. There was only ever going to be one winner. So my CEO at the time was fired. And it was a big blow to me personally, because the last thing she did before she was fired was she promoted me to become managing director, which meant that I'd lost the person that I trusted. It also meant that I was now the sole leader of an organisation that was struggling, because actually people very, very quickly start to understand that there are disconnections within your organisation, and they start to understand that if you're not completely aligned, if you've got different agendas, then it's not the type of organisation that they want to be part of. Things start breaking down, things start becoming political. There are conversations happening in hallways, there are people that are wanting to protect their own environment at actually the expense of others. So it meant that people start becoming competitive internally, and then everything starts breaking down. Your best talent starts leaving you behind the talent that you probably don't want. Your clients start having conversations with you about perhaps wanting to leave, and suddenly you're in a very, very difficult downward spiral. So I was managing director in 2007. It was a time that I really struggled with, and it's not a time that I like to think back too much about, but it really was the time when it defined me, and it defined the way that I was going to try and lead the organisation. I had two asks really for these people, because I wasn't completely sure whether I was going to be the next one that was fired. And my ask was that I get supported and I get invested in. And that really took the form of two things. The first one was this initiative, which is Omnicom University. So with all of Omnicom's resources, the senior management of Omnicom have decided to invest in a joint partnership with Babson, which is an education facility in Boston. I don't know whether any of you are familiar with it, but they use Harvard professors to help teach business studies. And Omnicom have invested this, and twice a year they take away all the leaders of the various disparate organisations within Omnicom. They all come together, there's about 55 of them, and they learn across about a week. You do about 35 live business case studies with Harvard professors in the rounds, and it's the most wonderful, life-transforming experience I've ever had. Because actually what they teach you is if you personally invest in people, then everything else follows. And if you can create an environment where people are stimulated, where there's trust, then actually you can achieve anything. It's called the service profit chain. I would urge you to go and look it up, because it's well written about by people like Jim Heskett. And it was just enlightening for me, because that's not the organisation that I recognised, and I knew that I had to make changes. The second thing that happily came along was this lady who you've already heard mentioned today, which is my coach, Fiona Parasha. So I worked with Fiona many, many years ago. She worked in my industry, and therefore I knew that she knew what I was going through and what my challenges were. And Fiona had retrained as a coach, and I actually interviewed lots and lots of coaches. I wanted someone that was going to be tough on me, and boy, she's tough. And the first thing she did is she got me to commit, am I up for this? And I absolutely was. The second thing she got me to commit to was 360-degree feedback, which you do with a lump in your throat, because you're never completely sure what's going to come back. But she decided to interview in depth all of my direct reports. And these are people that I hadn't really been working with for long. And she came back to me with that information, which really gave us the foundation for how to build my leadership style. Because what people were saying about me was, he's a smart guy, he's committed, he definitely believes in PhD, we like working with him, that was all the good stuff. But they were frustrated with my speed. Do I make decisions fast enough? Do I have the teeth to make really tough decisions? Because bear in mind the values that I wanted to bring to this business is love. Right? I wanted to do the caring value. I wanted to be kind and patient with people. And these individuals were saying, have you got the teeth to make tough decisions? So, I'm going to now talk to you about 10 things that I put into place that I still act upon today. And I think these are probably the foundations for our business now. I'm more than happy, by the way, to take questions at the end. If anyone's got any questions during what I'm talking about for either clarity or you just want some more information, then please put your hands up. But I'm going to start with the first one, which is self-awareness. This is probably the most important thing I think we have available to us. Can I have hands up who's done the Myers-Briggs survey? Oh my, that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, my next chart is this, because I actually encourage the entire agency to do the Myers-Briggs interview for a number of reasons. I felt very, very strongly that people were in conflict because they didn't understand where each other were coming from. They had different styles, they were coming at things from different angles. And actually some people, when they're in conflict, just go quiet, which frustrates people. Some people shout, and that upsets people. So what I really wanted to do was to make everyone understand how their team operated, and that it wasn't a personal thing, it's our personalities, and we all respond in different ways. Can I ask you all, does anyone here have the profile ISFP? Can't remember. This doesn't, oh, we might have one here. You and I are kindred spirits. It is the most unusual of all the profile types, and as you know, there are 16 Myers-Briggs profile types. I think it's under 3% of the entire country are ISFP, because we're strange. We're unusual. So it's a curious balance, and it's definitely something that I needed to work with Fiona on, because actually it's the least likely profile of any leader in any organisation. Because actually, if you start to unpick it, an I means that you're introverted. Introversion and leadership don't normally come together. The S is all about sensing, and that means that in order to come up with a solution to things, you like to interrogate the data in a huge amount of detail. That can sometimes slow you down, so that's not a great trait. The F is about feeling. So when I'm making decisions within our organisation, I start with how's it going to impact the people, not how it's going to impact the business. I always start with the people. That's not a usual trait for a leader of an organisation. And the last one is P, which is perceiving. And you're either a P or a T. Ts tend to make very, very quick decisions, and then sometimes they regret it because they act so fast. Ps like to think that there's always a better solution if they leave it a little bit longer. That's not a great trait for a CEO. So you can see that what I had was a very caring profile type, someone that took their responsibilities very seriously, wanted to get the right answer, but really felt very strongly. So with that profile, I decided to work with Fiona to work out what my own leadership style was. And the first thing she said to me is, I want you to be an authentic leader. You can't do this by being someone that you're not. You can't become your father because actually you've got your mother's traits and values. So I want to work with you to bring out those values and for you to be an authentic leader with your mother's values and your father's commitment. So the next one. This is probably the most critical thing of any organisation, is that people want to be talked to. It's the most obvious thing in the world, and yet I guarantee if you go into any organisation and speak to the staff, they'll say, I'm not entirely sure what's going on in this business. And that is where things break down. It's really, really important to be honest with everyone. So PhD is an organisation with about 280 people. And the first thing that I committed to in 2007 was that I was going to speak to the whole company every month without fail. And it didn't matter whether I had holiday booked or I was poorly or whatever. I made sure that I was going to run a company meeting and tell the organisation what was happening, whether it was good or bad or indifferent, things that I wanted to see, things that I had seen. I cannot tell you what a difference it's made and is continuing to make, because I feel that by that fourth week of me not talking to the company, there is a crackling within the business. They want to know what it is that we're pitching for, how successful we've been with our current work rate, what accounts are at risk, who's done what where within the organisation. It's really important to speak and speak openly. And at the beginning, you can imagine there were quite difficult conversations because I had to tell people that what I was seeing wasn't what I like to see. And here's how I need us to get out of what we're in. So I did share constantly. This picture next is what I do effectively every month. And when there is something more important to say, and it's not one of our company meetings, I'll get the whole company together. The next one is to create a story. So I know all of you will have your own story, but it's really, really important to think about how you frame that story for yourself, for your family, for your colleagues. For me, it was really important that I got the whole agency behind one consistent story. And I was really lucky because I had this to play with. These were the three founders of PhD. This picture was taken 25 years ago when they launched the business. And they're people that I believe in. They're people that share similar values to mine. And it was a gift, if you like, because I could talk about what they were thinking when they started the business. And it's something that I wanted to continue today. You know, when they started the business, there were just three of them. And effectively, it was almost like a family business. And this gave me, effectively, the platform to talk to the whole agency about what my expectations were. Interestingly, I've managed to move it on somewhat. So in February this year, PhD became 25 years old, and I decided that we were going to get the original founders back into the business, which I did. You can see they have not aged well. It's not... It's not a good investment for the business. No, no. But thankfully, they are all still with us. More importantly, they're still absolutely committed to the success of PhD. And they come in whenever we want them to come in. They regularly talk about how proud they are of the business. And I actually got them to talk to the whole company, because as much as I can tell the story of what happened in 1990, it's so much more powerful coming from them. So that's the story that I tell every new starter within our business. I used to do it back when I started on a one-to-one basis. I quickly worked out that that wasn't going to work because we have a lot of new starters in our company. So I decided to take them group by group, and I present to all of them and I tell them about the background of PhD, why it's so important to me, what my expectations are for them within the organisations, how we behave and how we don't behave. So this is something which I wanted to talk about because I tell stories regularly and I use metaphors for telling my stories. And at various times within my 8 years as a leader at PhD, I've told consistent stories but slightly different stories depending on what the business needed. And there was a moment in time, it was in 2012, when actually Man United was a good football team. It's controversial. Oh, sorry about that. Well, let's put it this way: they were still winning everything, and they were definitely something to look up to. And I think our board at the time was about 15 individuals, and I could tell that there was a bit of tension between some of them. There were people that were taking more glory for things because they had a slightly sexier role, and there were people that were really doing a lot of the grunt work. And perhaps weren't considered to be quite as important. And I decided to talk to our board about being PhD United, which means that we act as one, as a board. We are all working for each other. So I actually produced a series of top trump cards for the board, and I handed them out, and everyone's got their list of top trumps. And so this individual is not Edwin van der Sar. He's not. No, he's got no hair. So this is Luca Margarito. He's still within our business, and he runs something called our performance division, which is not the sexiest area. And his style is that he's very calm under pressure, he's a confidence builder, and he has a big physical presence. He's a big guy. And I decided to liken him to the goalie, because actually you really rely on this guy. He's your last line of defence. And suddenly you could see that, you know, his chest was sort of puffed out. Yeah, I'm the goalie. I've got a really important role here. And I did that for everyone on the board, ending, of course, with myself. So I don't know how much you know about football, but Nicky Butt was probably the least glamorous of any of the footballers that ever played for Man United. But it was really important that, that I showed myself in a self-deprecating way, partly because that's kind of how I am, but also I wanted to make a statement. You know, I'm not the sort of leader that will take all the glory, because that's not who I am. So I'm a defensive midfielder. I am committed. I'm unspectacular, as you can see, and I bask in reflected glory of the others. But I've got an important role to play, because I might be slightly invisible to certain people, but if I wasn't there, you'd miss me. So that was one of the stories that I gave to the board in 2012, and it changed the dynamic of how we work together as a team. I'm going to fast forward now to 2014, where I told a very different story. And the reason I told this story is because, like a lot of organisations, we started to fragment and diverse in other areas. Not surprisingly, like most organisations, their business model is challenged. Their revenues are under pressure. You're increasingly trying to find new ways to prop up your income. So you start diversifying. And diversification means that you start to attract a different kind of talent within your business. And with that comes challenges, because then you're not all the same type of people. And I think that's a good thing, but it means that people are starting to struggle with, right, so we're a data business. Well, that's not really what I want to be doing. I want to be doing this thing here. Suddenly you're working in parts of the business like content. And if you're in content, you're involved in the creation of new stuff, and it means that you've probably got an ego. Anyway, it starts to cause disruption within our business, because you have very diverse individuals and very diverse disciplines within your business. And what I decided to do was to try and take ownership of everything together, and to unite all of our disparate parts of the organisation together, to say to people that we're only as strong as the next team is, and that what you don't do is baton passing. You don't say, this is my responsibility, that's someone else's job. Because as soon as you do that, something's going to fall through the middle, and your client's going to leave you, and we can't afford for that to happen. So the metaphor that I used was the body, and I actually likened every single part of our organisation to a part of the body. And it actually took me a good couple of months of researching parts of the body to liken all of these things, because I wanted it to resonate. I wanted them to understand, okay, well, here's how I fit into the bigger picture. Here's how I fit into the body. And actually the message that I was giving is that if any one part of the body stops to function well, the whole body collapses. Okay, we're only as healthy as the whole. So you can see we've got a very, very disparate set of teams here. Some of them, or most of them, are within PhD. Some of them are within Omnicom Media Group. And again, it was a really important message that I wanted to send out, which is, don't turn your back on these people. These are a resource that you should be drawing in and using. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples. The first one is not very sexy. It's IT, because actually IT, for any of you in IT, you'll know that you're the first people that people blame. I've got 280 individuals, and all of them are screaming at IT constantly because, you know, the system crashes, or they can't share this file, or you know, it takes a long time for their computer to boot up. We all have the same issues. And what I wanted to say is that IT are like gums. Okay, they are a protective barrier against external bodies. They're stopping people from corrupting our files. And the reason that they're constantly addressing issues is because it's misused, right? We don't look after our gums, and in the same way we don't look after our IT. People don't clean their files out, which means that they overload the system, which means that the thing collapses. So I was making a very, very specific point within all of these. The next one, of course, I had to talk about management, and I decided to liken management to the lungs, because what we do try to do is to insert the good stuff and extract the bad stuff. That's effectively what we do. We're shock absorbers for the heart, and we are full of hot air. So I did that originally to the board, and I could see their faces just change. Like, oh my God, right, I can see now that we're not this unit. We are part of a complete network of individuals that have to work collaboratively together. And it made the whole organisation change. Suddenly, we weren't acting as one, we were being one. And I gave that presentation about a year ago to the company, and it's one that, again, any new starter sees, because I have to have people believing that it's a joint responsibility, not a singular one. So modelling good behaviour is a really big lesson that I learned in Babson. What they say to you is that one bad apple ruins the whole thing, and it's so true. One of the case studies that they teach you is about a very, very high-performing individual, the highest performing individual, that actually was full of bad behaviour. You know, they shouted at people, they were disruptive, they happened to get amazing results. And because they never tell you what the final answer is within these case studies, we ended up in a place that said that person should be fired. It doesn't matter how well you perform. If you're modelling bad behaviour, you set a bad precedent, and you're acting as the role model for everyone how not to behave. So what I made a particular effort to do is to single out people that were behaving badly, and I called them out on it. And I did it not in a very uncomfortable way, because that's not my style, but I talked to them individually and said, you can't behave like that, and here's why, and I won't tolerate it. And the thing that has changed, whether I can make a tough decision or not, is I'm all about the success of PhD. And if it's to save and nurture 280 people, I will make the decision to get rid of a bad apple. And I have had to do that on the odd occasion. But the other really important thing is to start modelling good behaviour. So, PhD, when it was first launched in 1990, had a mantra about finding a better way. It was the reason that PhD came into being, and I decided to run a competition within our organisation. So every month when I'm talking to the company, I will pick out the employee of the month, and that's the individual that has found a better way in what they do. It's not the smartest person. This person could be on reception, they could work in IT, they could work in finance, it doesn't matter. If they've found a better way to save time and help their colleagues, then they win that award. So what I'm doing there is reinforcing good behaviours. Ongoing feedback is an interesting one. Again, this is probably very obvious to you, but within lots of commercial organisations, we do appraisals. They happen once a year, and you've got that dreaded time where someone sits down in front of you and they're almost shaking because they don't know what you're going to say. And sometimes they get really good news and they leave the room excited, and other times they're devastated. And I decided that wasn't the sort of organisation I wanted to be in, because actually no one should be shocked. No one should be pleasantly surprised. Everyone should know what's coming. And the only way you can do that is if you give feedback on the run. So what I encourage all of my managers to do is tell people how their teams are performing every day. Now that sounds exhausting. When I talk to other people that don't practice this way, they just go, oh, have you got the time to do that? But it takes a second. You know, you leave a meeting and you say to people, that was an extraordinary presentation. It was, what I loved about it was this. Next time, it's just worth thinking about this, that, and the other. And in that way, people start to correct themselves, and it happens gradually over time. And it means that although we still do appraisals, in fact, we do quarterly check-ins, there are no shocks, right? You don't get this situation where people say, why haven't you ever told me? Why is it that this is coming out a year later? No one has any surprises within our business. So this is our PDP, Personal Development Plan, and importantly, I made this a very conscious decision to put our values as the first thing that we assess people on, and we called it the human touch. Which of our values best sum up your contribution since your last review, and why? Fun, self-aware, candid, respectful, inquisitive, succinct, warm and responsible. There's a lot of values there, but it's really important to me that our people reflect these values, and I want to know what values they're not reflecting, because then we can work with them. Spreading knowledge. This is another flaw, I think, within organisations, is that a lot of commercial organisations tend to be very top-heavy, and knowledge is power. And that sucks, because unfortunately, when leaders hold on to all of the information, no one knows what's happening. And it was something that I found, even as the managing director, believe it or not. My CEO was holding on to information like that, and I had no idea about the health of the business. I had no idea how to fix things, because I didn't know they were broken. So when I started, our board was at the top here. It was about 15 people, and they're great. And what I used to say to them at the beginning and at the end of every board meeting is, please spread this information into your teams. It's really important that we're discussing everything here. I want the whole company to know about it. Inevitably, life gets in the way. They're all busy, and I would talk to people within the company, and I'd say, well, you know what's happening next week, and they'd say no. So I decided to double the size of the board because actually a lot of these individuals are the people that have the direct client relationships, that can empower their teams, and they're better communicators. So actually, by doubling the size of the board meant that we were starting to trickle information from the top of the company to the very bottom of the company very quickly. Care program. So this is, I mean, you've seen what happens to you working in advertising after 25 years. It's not good. It's not good because we're all under a lot of pressure. Again, you don't work in the media world. We're definitely not saving lives, but we sometimes act as if we are. And people are put under a huge amount of pressure by clients to turn things around very quickly. Most clients now will expect a response back in the same day, whether it's a considered piece of work or something much shorter. We have to pitch for new business. When you pitch for new business, competitive tender, pricing is part of that, but you have to show the passion and the energy. And, we start asking people whether they'll work on weekends and late into the night. And if you do that repeatedly over a period of time, it weighs you down. And a lot of people feel the stress in a different way. And we say pressure's a good thing, but stress is a bad thing because it starts having very, very negative impact on you. It affects your eating patterns, your sleep, your well-being. So I decided that I really wanted to find more balance within our business and that we'd create a program. This program is called Looking After Me, because actually, if I haven't got a healthy team, then we've got nothing as a business, because more people will go off sick, people become disenfranchised and want to leave, people come to work run down and tired, they can't give their best. So I decided to create some new initiatives. And they really ranged from, actually, when I joined PhD, they already did a free breakfast, but we made sure that there was fruit throughout the day. We made sure that there was a nutritionist in the organisation. We made sure that there was a masseuse that could help people if they're feeling stressed. We offered hypnotherapy and various alternative types of well-being to people. And it has absolutely transformed our company because people feel cared about and people are much healthier. We have running clubs. We do tons of stuff in this area. And my head of HR is an absolute marvel. But it's something which I'm really, really proud of because not many companies do this. So a development program is an interesting one. We invest about £200,000 a year in learning and development, which is not bad for about 280 people. But actually, development for me is about so much more than just the learning that they do within the business, because actually people need new experiences. Now, I don't know what the churn rates are like within your organisations, but within advertising and media, it's horrendous. It's somewhere between 30 and 40%. Can you imagine changing 30 to 40% of your workforce every single year? It's exhausting because you have to recruit, so you've got to interview a load more people. You have to induct them into your business. I have to go through all the presentations that I've shown you countless times. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create more of a family within PhD where people feel emotionally attached to the business. And I'm not naive enough to think that just by caring about them and creating a nice environment will keep them there, because actually people are more ambitious than that. But what I have learned is that around the 3-year mark, 2.5 to 3 years, people start feeling like they've got itchy feet. And it's a perfectly natural thing to do, because if you work on the same business with the same team, you feel like you're ready for a new challenge. So I decided to give people a new challenge before they even knew they were ready for it. And what I've instigated is a program whereby I systematically move people around our business. And not everyone likes this, right? You can imagine when I broached this to our board, like, oh my God, but that client loves that person. I can't move them off. I can't possibly do that. And I said to them, if you don't do that, they'll leave the business and you'll have to find a replacement anyway. This way we get to keep that talent within the business. They're stimulated for another 3 years and we'll keep it going like that. Now, by the way, I don't insist, right? If someone says, I'm so happy working on this business, please don't move me. I'm not going to force someone to do it. But I absolutely have forced our entire board to open up the conversation with every single one of their team to say, what are your career ambitions? If you were to move within our business, what would be an interesting move for you? And I've made that happen probably 100 times now within our business. So the example I've got is a lady called Frances Ralston-Good. She's brilliant. She's worked at PhD for 10 years. She worked her way up to be my managing director. And I could see that while she was a very capable managing director, she needed a new challenge. Frances loves to rip things up and start again, and I decided to work with her to create a brand new role, which is our Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer, with a remit to change things within our organisation. And I think we'll probably hear a lot more about head of transformation in most organisations, because all of us are going through dramatic change, particularly through technology and digital landscape. And I need someone like Frances to change what's happening within our organisation as we go from an analogue to a fully digitised business. So empowering people, just a very quick one here. Again, within a lot of organisations, you hear people moan. The kettle doesn't work, or the reception looks a bit tired, or the toilets are dirty. You get lots and lots of people making comments about the business and then not taking any responsibility, and I decided not having that. Right, this is everyone's company. It's not my company. I don't own the company, by the way. It's not for the board to do everything. It's up to the whole organisation to take control. So we created something called Nudge. We have nudge cards, and on these nudge cards, it says, I have noticed that. And what they're identifying is a problem in their business. It could be a structural one, it could be the environment, it could be the air conditioning, it could be anything, but they've noticed something. But importantly on this nudge card is, so I have done this, because what I want them to do is fire them into action, right? I want these people to take responsibility and say, I've noticed that it's too cold, the air conditioning's too cold, so I've been to see facilities and I've had a conversation. And then the last one is what I need management to do, which is to have another conversation to make sure that the processes are in place. So it was a really quick way of saying, no more moaning. If you see something that's broken, then fix it and you'll get our support. And we've made a huge number of changes, particularly to the building, actually. And the last one of these things is about championing things. It's really important that as a leader, the company can look up and say, I have a leader that believes in something, right? It almost doesn't matter what. It just so happens that what I believe in is diversity within our business, because I am male and I'm white and I'm middle-aged. I'm all those things, middle class. But it's really important to me that we have people from diverse backgrounds. I want more women in our business. I want more ethnic diversity. I want more people who have come from different backgrounds, not privileged backgrounds, because you become a much more complete organisation. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to reflect the population. Okay, we're doing media planning and buying, and I'm trying to say to our clients, we know how the public act. How can we if we're all the same person? So, earlier this year, I took part in an initiative. It's called the 3% Conference, and the reason it's called the 3% Conference is because only 3% of creative directors globally are women. It's shocking, 3%. Now, I don't work within the creative community, but the reason they wanted me to speak at the conference is because I've changed the amount of female representation we have within our business, and I feel so passionately about it, they got me to speak at the conference. And after that, I then got interviewed by a new organisation called the Token Man, and it's really with a view to represent the male side of how we should be championing women. I got more response to this than I've ever got to any single article that I've ever written, because I had women calling me up from all over the place saying, thank God there is a man that believes in in women, but more importantly than that, that believes in returning mums. I've got a view that returning mums are the best people in the world in our workplace because they know how to get stuff done, right? They're not there to chat, they're there to sort things out. And so I encourage, and actually most of our industry at the moment is discouraging returning mums because they want more flexible working and they might want to leave a little bit early, and what happens if the kid's sick? I've got the opposite view. So it created a big stir in our business, and it's something that I'm really proud of. How am I doing for time? Yeah? So I've got a short video here. It is really cheesy. I hope you don't mind. But we do this thing in our business called Agency of the Year. It's where some outside bodies come in, they decide that you've had quite a good year, and then they decide whether you are the media agency of the year. We've been shortlisted for the last 7 years, which is incredible. So they only shortlist 3 or 4 agencies a year. And in one of the years, and I think this was probably 2012, we decided to make this video because it represented the human touch. And the human touch is what I think, hopefully, is my legacy at PhD.
At PhD, we strive to find a better way to put the human touch into everything we do. That means remembering that we work with people, not clients, media owners or colleagues. It means remembering that our work engages humans, not target audiences. It means empathy being as important as intellect. It means more anecdotes, less acronyms. It means your heart and gut are as powerful as your head. It means knowing what's important to your clients and making it important to you. It means bringing all of your life experience to work, not just the professional bit. It means knowing that insights are truths about why people think and do things, not mere facts. It means endeavouring to put more back into industry than you take out. It means humanising data and technology, not romanticising it. It means any time and money saved through automation is reinvested in human talent. It means turning down pitches if, in any way, they would be to the detriment of our existing clients or our people. It means understanding it's not about selling more stuff to clients, it's about clients selling more stuff. And ultimately, it means every single PhDer knowing the journey we're on and giving them the opportunity to contribute to the success of the business. This approach has created significant success for PhD. And that success has over 200 sets of fingerprints on it. We could use long words and call it the democratisation of success. We just call it the human touch. I'm James and I run PhD.
I'm Cheryl and I run PhD.
I'm Sean and I run PhD.
I'm Susie.
I'm Tim.
I'm Michaela.
I'm Ollie.
I'm Mark.
Sarah.
John.
Katie.
Ewan.
Catherine.
Tom.
Matt.
And I run PhD.
And I run PhD.
And I run PhD.
And I run
PhD.
I'm Darren and I run PhD. With some help.
So I'm now going to do the third part, right, the Rubens results. These aren't my results, they're the results of everyone at PhD. So I talked about Agency of the Year. We're the most awarded agency of any within the UK. Actually, this is for Media Week, and we've been shortlisted 5 years in a row. The next one is how our clients feel about us. We do a regular survey. In fact, we pretty much measure every single metric within our business. This one is about how clients are feeling about us. And by the way, it goes from there to there, just in case you're wondering. So we do an advocacy score, which is how likely our clients would be to recommend us to a friend or colleague. And we constantly punch above our weight and better than the competition. We also monitor the types of comments that come back, and it's great for me to see that it is about our attitude, it's about our relationships and our people, because that's what we're bringing to the party. So we have the happiest people. Hopefully this is a build, because we did this in 2014, and we were the number 18 company to work for in the UK. It was the highest ranked agency from any marketing discipline, whether it was creative, PR, whatever. We were number 18 in 2014. We did the same thing in 2015. And we were number 16. In fact, we're the 3rd most fun place to work in the UK. Surprised me. So we have the happiest people. And Then we do a PwC survey, which actually is right across the whole of Omnicom globally. And it's something that they look for. They do a number of statements. This one is, I have confidence in the leader within my organisation. We have a very strong group average, which is 73%, and ours is 88%, which is reassuring for me. The next one is, in the past 6 months, my supervisor has talked to me about my career progress. This is the very thing that I've been encouraging, and I'm pleased to say that we have completely outperformed the group average. I'm able to balance my job and personal life against the group average of 58%, we're 84%. So I'm really, really pleased with these results, and actually it means that we're much more commercially successful. These are, I think, pretty much most of the businesses that we've been successful in winning over the period of my tenure as leader within PhD. I should probably say that we already had Sainsbury's as a client, and we already had a Warner Brothers as a client, but we've had to retender for those accounts, and we've kept them. So we have an unbelievable new business record. So I think that's my final slide. Otherwise, just thank you for listening to my journey. I hope it's been relevant and interesting, and I'll take any questions.
We have about 5 minutes, I think. We started a little bit later, so we're running like that. 4 questions for Darren, if that's okay. I don't think I'm going to be able to run around with this, though, to ask people to speak into it. So can I just ask, if you have a question, you're going to have to shout, because there's not enough room for us to run around, so I should leave that.
Darren, I'm Susan from the University of York. Loved the presentation, really inspirational, and really connected with a lot that's going on in higher education, so thank you. Do have to ask out of curiosity, who's 1 and 2 for fun companies?
No. Well, it's really interesting because we compete in the medium-sized companies. So there is a small companies one, which is under 200 people, and then there's a very large one, which is, I think, over 500 people. So we compete in what is the bulk of most companies within the UK. What you find is the companies that do extraordinarily well is where they're owner-managed, because they're in complete control of their own destiny, and we're not. As you can see, I've tried to be, as much in control as I can, but ultimately we are part of Omnicom, and therefore when they say to me, we need you to do X, Y, and Z, I just have to try and couch it in my own way. But 1 and 2 will definitely be owner-managed businesses.
Hi, I'm Valerie Stewart from Newcastle University. Again, fabulous presentation. I was really pleased to see one of your points was motivating job roles. And one of the best jobs I've ever been in is where that happened. And I'm pleased to say it was a health service, which is where you need very well-trained staff who've actually done each job. But I found it anywhere else I've worked, it's been hard to get anybody to even think about adapting that. Did you have those problems?
Yeah, I really did. I had a lot of pushback from our board because, as I said, their challenge is from clients, and we're always very nervous about how people will respond, both our people and our customers, to change. But actually, I've never encountered a bad change, a bad result from a change, because people need stimuli. We're all in the same place, aren't we? Do a job year after year after year, you get stale. And you're looking for a new challenge. So it definitely works for the person. It means that they bring more enthusiasm and energy into their role. And clients, very often, although they will say at the time, I'm not happy about losing that person, when someone fresh comes on with new eyes, new perspective, and the energy, clients very, very often will say, I can't believe I ever challenged that. It's the best thing you've done. So this is as forceful as I get, but I actually make sure that each one of our board has this conversation, and I get them to report back on it. I make it happen because I've never seen anything bad come from it.
Totally agree. Thank you.
A comment and a question. Yeah. It's great that you're encouraging returning mothers who are into the workplace. I would much rather you encourage returning parents, because although there's a lot of mothers, it's much harder for the fathers who take time out to then return to the workplace. So just a comment on diversity.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fair. And actually, the legal position has changed now, where I didn't appreciate this, but fathers can share maternity leave. And it's particularly challenging for organisations where a father within your business suddenly said, and very often they won't tell you, by the way, that they've even had a baby. They'll say, I'm taking the next 6 months off. And you go, right, okay. But no, I totally agree. We haven't actually had one of those situations yet. But my view is the more flexible you can be, the more people give to their roles. So it pays back, definitely.
At the question, you've got some very impressive statistics for your company performance within the group. What are you doing to try and put that best practice that you're demonstrating back into the wider group?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So we get together as an Omnicom Media Group board. I'm pleased to say that my boss, Philippa Brown, is very, very keen to spread best practice. So when I started, the agencies didn't speak to each other. They all competed against each other. Now we're like that. And all of these PwC results, in fact, those have only come out last week. We discussed at the last board meeting. And I'm pleased to say everyone was looking at me saying, oh my God, how have you got these numbers? And so I then was able to share with everyone how we've gone about doing it. And, there's stuff for PhD to learn from the other companies as well. So there is definitely there's a monthly forum to share and spread best practice.
We have one last question here.
Ian Whiting from Oxford Brooks. You said you had a large turnover of staff, sometimes up to 40%.
Yeah.
Do some of those staff come back and work for you?
Excellent question. I'm pleased you asked that. So I should probably say the industry has a churn rate of between 30 and 40. Actually, the whole media industry has got better, so it's now around 25. Ours is around 15. So I'm pleased to say that people do stay with PhD, but we've also started a boomerang club, as we call it, which is people that go to other agencies. For me, they're even better than returning mums, because actually what they do is they spread the word that I thought the grass was greener over here. It's not, and they effectively tell everyone at PhD they are making the right decision to be there. So yeah, I would say we've got about 30 within our business that have gone somewhere else and then come back. And Francis, actually, our Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer, is one of those as well.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sure there were lots of resonances in the room for you. One thing that we were really shocked to hear was that sometimes the best performers are badly behaved. We don't find that in our sector. And actually your solution, and many of us would have liked to do, I think. But, and I love the nudge idea, apart from anything else. That was something I thought was really good. Anyway, thank you. As I said, we're running slightly late, but we would like to kind of catch up. So if we could aim to get back here about just after 25 to, so that does mean you're going to need to grab your coffee and maybe come back in, if that's okay. And on your behalf, I'd like to thank Darren for a very inspiring and great keynote speech. Thank you.